Nothing will be as big as the Luka trade. It still feels like a dream, but we are far from done with gigantic NBA trades. We already have huge names that are rumored to be moving. So how do we predict which superstar goes next? Well, there are obvious guys that we all know of, but new rumors are mind-blowing. Why would this player get traded? Well, at this point, nothing is off the table after that Luka deal. So first up is Ja Morant. Seriously? Well, a reporter named Howard Beck dropped this quote, and you have to know this. Howard Beck is one of the most respected NBA reporters alive. This is not some random Twitter guy. He is plugged in. I am constantly checking in with executives around trade deadline about who's the next wave of star that's gonna get dealt, and somebody out of the blue said, keep an eye on Ja Morant this summer. I'm just saying it's one of those things that I'm just kind of keeping an eye on if they were to flame out early. Really? We know about all the drama around Ja, but this is smart, okay? If the Grizzlies had given up on him right after all the gun stuff, they'd look like they don't have their guys back. NBA players would hate that. Instead, you wait about a year, it just looks better. But Ja's dad just got ejected from a game again the other day for bad behavior. Like, does this guy not know that he's a grown adult? He acts like a kid way too much for being somebody's dad. I mean, I could see the Grizz like, you know what? Ja's entire crew is just too much for us. Plus, he's always injured. Remember, December 2023, Ja had a shoulder issue that ended his season. After a ton of injuries before that, this year already missed 22 games. So I could see the Grizz moving on. But for what? Well, they need a championship number one. They're not a rebuild team. A guy that can raise Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, and the young guys to the next level. Memphis cannot get free agents, so it's gotta be a trade. Now, I don't want to ruin the rest of this list, but let's just say that there's a couple of guys that the Grizz would love. So next up is Kevin Durant. Brian Windhorst all but guaranteed that KD would be moving this summer. Durant was blindsided at being involved in trade talks at the deadline. He has got 1 year left in Phoenix and already refused to sign an extension. So Windy says he's probably gonna get traded this summer. He knows it, the Suns know it, the rest of the league knows it. They're gonna enjoy him while they have him. And when Windy says that, you can take it to the bank. Remember, this is the guy who predicted the Donovan Mitchell trade with the "what's going on in Utah" meme. But what will the Suns get back? Well, the last time KD was traded, the Suns got him for Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and control of 5 first-round picks, which is huge. Now, though, KD is 37 years old, with just 1 year left. He gets to call the shots. So we know he refuses Golden State to play with Draymond Green. ESPN reported KD is open to being in Miami. Now, the Minnesota Timberwolves called because KD and Ant love playing together. In fact, Ant just said, "I have seen some crazy stuff about Kevin Durant in trade talks. I was super surprised. I didn't think that Phoenix would be trying to trade him," which is basically like, yeah, man, they are doing you wrong. Come play with us. Also, we know about the Rockets or OKC, but there is one other shocking team to consider. Kyrie Irving told Tim Bontemps of ESPN that him, KD, and Anthony Davis tried to link up in 2018. Said they all wanted to play in Boston, but now, Dallas. Fans noticed how happy these two looked together at the bench on All-Star. How crazy would it be if Kyrie was recruiting Durant to be a Maverick? But that trade would actually be kind of crazy. It would have to be the Mavs get KD for Klay Thompson, Max Christie, Daniel Gafford, Dwight Powell, Caleb Martin, Jaden Hardy, and control of 3 first. The Suns would have to cut players to open roster space, but it works because Phoenix needs depth. They finally get a center with Gafford, a good young wing with Max Christie, and Klay the shooter. But this kills the Mavs' depth, and there's no other way to get to KD's giant $50 million salary than trading all these guys. I'm not saying it's a good trade, just pointing out the deal would have to look like that. And their front office is crazy enough to actually pull this off. But next up is Trae Young. I would put him right there with KD as most likely to move. A huge reporter, Chris Haynes, put out a tweet saying Trae's future in Atlanta is murky.
Pivot to Trae Young. That guy is a fierce competitor. He wants to win. So the direction of the Hawks is very, I would say, very unique, considering they know where he stands and what he wants to accomplish.
Translation, Trae doesn't fit their timeline. And why? Well, this is an old picture of the young core. Trae is the only man left standing in a Hawks uniform because the old rebuild failed. Now they gotta start all over. Trae just doesn't fit with that. I mean, this year, surprisingly good. They were the number 5 seed entering January, but Jalen Johnson got injured and they've waved the white flag. Started selling off win-now players, DeAndre Hunter for Karis LeVert and picks, Bogdan Bogdanovic for Terrence Mann. Obviously, the next move is to trade Trae Young. But the good news, Atlanta needs a big trade, okay? They can't rebuild through the draft because of the DeJounte Murray deal. So where does Trae go? I think the Orlando Magic is a perfect fit. The Magic need a player to set the table for Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner. Their defense is good enough to cover Trae's liability. Their main problem is shooting, and yes, Trae is streaky, but his game improves a lot playing more off ball. So the deal is the Magic get Trae, the Hawks get Anthony Black, Cole Anthony, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and control of 4 first-round picks. So Black is a very good young player who Orlando hates to have to trade, but this is really all about picks. Atlanta loads back up on draft capital, while the Magic get to cash in, but keep their core players. Trae has proven to be a big game player in the postseason, be a perfect addition for the future. But Giannis is an obvious move this summer. It just feels like the Bucks are done, right? I mean, they have no chance to compete. Dealing Chris Middleton feels like a new chapter. Giannis has said that he wants to be in Milwaukee if they are competing for titles. So what did they just do? In is Kyle Kuzma, Jericho Sims, and Kevin Porter Jr. Out, Chris Middleton, AJ Johnson, DeLon Wright, Marjon Beauchamp. Great! Are they better? No! Kuzma's having one of his worst seasons ever. And considering Giannis's comments, it only feels like a matter of time. Now, did you know the Mavericks actually called about trading Luka for Giannis, and they said no. So what can they actually get now? Well, if the Bucks flame out in the playoffs, Giannis is 30 years old, one of the best two-way players alive with championship experience. So Milwaukee gets a huge offer, like Giannis for Ja Morant, John Conchar, and 1 first-round pick. Why do the Grizz have to send a pick for a guy who's 5 years older? Because Giannis is much better than Ja Morant. But the Bucks do this to get a star who's 5 years younger to continue building with. Giannis, I think, would be happy in Memphis because they are a deep team and already the number 2 seed. They are primed to compete with titles, adding Giannis to Triple J, Desmond Bane, and a ton of young talent. But there are other guys to mention like Zion Williamson or Paul George. But those core 4 guys, Giannis, Ja, Kevin Durant, and Trae Young, are actually good enough to change the NBA landscape. Don't be surprised if they all move this summer. And the Kevin Durant situation actually deserves a deep dive. So I broke down the entire thing and why the Timberwolves are actually his number 1 landing spot.